Good evening, everyone. Tonight we will be exploring Native American education in the 20th century. The 20th century was defined by U.S. government policies aimed at erasing Native cultures through forced assimilation. But it's not just another tale of government oppression. It's also a story of survival and resilience. We'll cover what happened, the broader historical context, and the impact on American history. So let's dive right in, starting with what happened. At the start of the century, the federal government expanded a system of off-reservation boarding schools, beginning with institutions like the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, founded in 1879. These schools forcibly removed thousands of Native children from their families, aiming to civilize them by banning Native language, cutting their hair, and imposing Western clothing and routines. As Robert Brunhouse details in his 1939 account of Carlisle's founding, the school relied on inadequate Army-style rations for over 25 years, demonstrating the government's neglectful and intentional lack of support for these children. Punishments for speaking Native tongues or practicing Native traditions were also common, resulting in widespread abuse and cultural loss. One powerful first-hand account comes from Charles Eastman, a Santee Sioux. In his autobiography, From the Deep Woods of Civilization, Eastman describes his early 1870s mission school experience, where he felt like a wild cub among lambs, and resisted the school's demands to abandon his Sioux identity, like when he refused to cut his hair. His father pushed for Western education as a means of survival, while his grandmother advocated for preserving his Native traditions, leaving him torn by these family tensions during this period of assimilation. Mid-century, policy shifted toward urbanization. The 1956 Indian Relocation Act encouraged Native people to leave reservations for cities, promising jobs but delivering only racism and poverty instead. As David K. Miller in 2019 explained in his Indians on the Move, this led to de-Indianization, where urban natives faced discrimination in housing and employment. Yet many still preserve cultural practices through community networks and secret ceremonies. Reforms began emerging with the 1928 Merriam Report, which exposed boarding school horrors and culminated in the 1975 Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. This law allowed tribes to control their own schools, integrating cultural elements into their education systems. However, challenges persisted, including biased studies like E.H. Chief's 1940 research, which falsely linked lower intelligence rates to a higher fraction of Native ancestry, reflecting the racism in the time period. In larger historical context, this topic reveals our nation's broad push for cultural uniformity, alongside both industrialization and expansion. The 20th century saw the U.S. continuing its history of imperialism when it came to dealing with the natives, as seen in policies like the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 and the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, which both aimed to consolidate tribes but often ignored their sovereignty. Native education mirrored civil rights struggles, with natives fighting in world wars yet facing alienation when they came home, as Paul C. Rosier notes in Serving Their Country. Events like the 1973 Wounded Knee occupation highlighted demands for self-determination, tying into the era's social movements against discrimination. And why does all this matter? Well, the impacts ripple through American history all the way up until today, creating intergenerational trauma that contributes to ongoing disparities in education, health, and politics. Reservations, which were never intended as permanent installations, confined mobile tribes, disrupting economies, and led to poverty that persists today. Yet, Native resilience has preserved traditions, including influencing modern American multiculturalism. Understanding this history of our country's Native people pushes us toward equity, informing policies on cultural revitalization and closing opportunity gaps in 2025 through tribal colleges and language programs that aim at reviving and preserving Native languages. By learning from the past, we honor Native contributions and build a more inclusive America. Thanks for watching.